Hello, I'm continuing my reviews on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation. Now, this is the fourth film in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. Now, the film stars a very young Matthew McConaughey and a very young Renee Zellweger. And this is Renee Zellweger's only good movie, and this is perhaps Matthew McConaughey's finest performance. Nah, the movie sucks. Now, the film was originally released in 1994 under the title The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it was released at, film festivals, but then the film was shelved for, 3 years because Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger became, big major Hollywood stars. Renee Zellweger became famous for Jerry Maguire, and Matthew McConaughey became famous for movies like A Time to Kill and Lone Star. Now, I don't know about Renee Zellweger, but Matthew McConaughey is apparently not proud of this movie at all, and I don't know if this was necessarily a decision on his part or a decision on the part of his agent, but Matthew McConaughey's people actually sued to have this film never released. Now, I am a Matthew McConaughey fan. I think he's a great actor. He's been in some shitty movies, but in the last few years, he's been in some damn good movies, like the movie Killer Joe, where he was just freaking horrifying in that movie, and he was also on the first season of True Detective, and was just brilliant in that. So I do think he's a great actor, and I really do like him as an actor. But I do think it's a little douchebaggish that he sued to have this movie never released. I mean, it's not a very good movie, but it's a little douchebaggish to have this film, to try to stop this film from ever being released. But eventually the movie was released in 1997 under the title Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation. Now, the title Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation just makes me think of this. I didn't make that picture, but that picture is fucking brilliant. Now, the film is written and directed by Kim Henkel, who also co-wrote the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Now, apparently this film is a direct sequel to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it ignores the continuity of parts 2 and 3, but at the same time, though, in the opening credits of this movie, the opening narration, they talk about the events from the first movie, but then the narrator talks about 2 minor events that happened, so it's kind of referencing the events from parts 2 and 3, but kinda not at the same time. Now, this is a definite horror comedy. This is definitely a parody on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. Now, this is not a good movie, but I'll be lying if I said this movie wasn't a little enjoyable, really because of how absurd it actually is, and the film has developed a cult following over the years, really because of how ridiculous it actually is. Now, the plot of the movie is it follows a group of teenagers, one of them a girl named Jenny, played by Renee Zellweger, who on prom night get into a car accident. So then a tow truck driver comes along to quote-unquote help them, named Velmer, played by Matthew McConaughey, but it turns out that Velmer is a member of the family of Leatherface's family, and long story short, this group of teenagers start to become terrorized by Leatherface and his family. Now, as I said, this is not really a good movie, but I'll be lying if I said this movie wasn't at least a little enjoyable. really because of how ludicrous the film actually is. And this really is an absolutely ridiculous movie, but it really was kind of intended to be ridiculous. Like, it's a horror comedy, and it really, there's no way this film was meant to be taken seriously at all, so I really don't know if I can criticize it too much, because in a weird way I think this film succeeded in what it was trying to do. Like, in the film you have a lot of bad acting, but something tells me it was intentionally bad acting. Like, there's a scene in this movie where Matthew McConaughey's character starts chasing Jenny's boyfriend in his tow truck, and then he stops the truck and the kid's all tired out and he's going, "Oh, please, mister, you're scaring me." And his acting's so bad, but it's so bad that it had to be intentional. Also, in the movie, there's this character named Heather who, throughout the movie, is saying this really bad dialogue, but at the same time, though, her dialogue's so bad that it had to be intentional. Like, it has to be intentionally bad dialogue. But perhaps the most ridiculous thing about this movie, and the thing that even when I first saw this movie a couple of years ago, I was just like, what the fuck is this? Is, in the movie you find out that the family actually works for this secret government organization similar to something like the Illuminati or the Freemasons or something. And this movie's playing on this whole idea that what if the family's actions in the first 3 movies were all orchestrated by this Illuminati-like organization? And it's just as ridiculous as it sounds. But in the movie, there are some really funny parts. Like, there's a part of this movie where the character of Heather's boyfriend is being held at gunpoint by a member of the family, and he says, "Get in the house!" And this guy's like, all right, I have to use your bathroom anyway." Like, this is a bad movie, but it is almost so bad that it's good kind of film. And while it might not be the greatest movie in the world, I don't think Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger should be too embarrassed about this movie. Now, even though McConaughey is embarrassed about this movie, his performance in the movie is really, really damn good. Like, there are points in this movie where he's actually really freaking creepy, and Matthew McConaughey, I think he does a great job at playing villains. Like, he played the villain in that movie Killer Joe, and was just freaking horrifying in that movie, and he's actually really horrifying in this movie. It almost seems like he should be in a completely different movie, and Matthew McConaughey, once again, I think he does a really good job at playing bad guys. It's one of the reasons why I really do think he should play Randall Flagg in this new adaptation of The Stand that they're trying to make. Now, I do want to point out Leatherface in this movie. In this movie, Leatherface starts changing faces a little bit. In the beginning of the movie, Leatherface looks pretty much like he did in the first 3 movies, but this is what he looks like by the end of the movie. The new and improved Leatherface, I guess? Now, Marilyn Burns actually has a brief cameo appearance at the end of this movie as a patient at this hospital. Now, Marilyn Burns played the character of Sally, who was the main character in the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, and it's implied that this patient at the hospital is the character of Sally from the first movie. So yeah, that's my review on Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. It's not a good movie, but it is kind of enjoyable though, so I recommend it, and bye.